Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Masterclass. We are joined by a very good friend of mine, Ashley Horne. We had met, 4 or 5 years ago. We had an industry-wide training. We worked at the same company, spent about a week together in our home office in Milwaukee, and have really just stayed in touch ever since then. Ashley agreed to share some of her personal branding strategies and social media strategies with all of you today. So Ashley, thanks so much for joining us. I'm excited to get going.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So I guess let's start off. I've seen your growth not only in your business, but in your social media presence. What sort of triggered that change, specifically with social media from kind of using it on more just the personal side sparingly to I see you on Instagram basically every day with your story and posts and things like that. What I guess motivated you to make that switch?
Yeah. I think it was last year. I just felt like I wanted to do something a little bit different with my social media. I'm like, why do I follow the people that I do on social media? And being a woman, I follow a lot of makeup people and a lot of skincare people and a lot of like influencers that focus on that stuff. And what I realized last year is no one really talks about finances. There's nothing. And if there are, it's really boring. It's usually like, like old white men or younger guys. And like, there's no like flair or glamorous side for like a young female like myself to follow someone else who's actually focused on making life glamorous, like on the financial side of things. So that kind of came about last year a little bit. Like coming into this year, I was like, I want to do something a little bit different than what other people have been doing, and maybe target young women like myself to kind of educate them a little bit, but also make it fun, since I know people think it's super boring to talk about financing.
Right. No, that's so what it sounds like you're doing, just not to discourage the guys in the group, right? Is they can still be fun and energetic, but what you've done specifically is you've sort of transformed your social media and really niched down to appeal to professional, successful women, correct?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so said differently, if you were working with, you know, people in finance or doctors or whatever it is, you got to have that, energetic side of you that comes out, but have it geared towards that particular audience.
Yeah, absolutely. What I had felt that there was just something a little bit missing, and I think it'd be a different perspective to learn from a young female in the business who moved out to a market where, I knew no one starting the business, and kind of also talking about savings and finance, but also talking about how to build a business and what you need to do, and kind of the scary side of that part of it as well too, is not only teaching people about finance, but also being a business owner yourself. So on
Right.
both things, but appealing to everyone, absolutely, but also hearing it from a different perspective as well, which is,
Awesome.
yeah.
Now, so from a compliance standpoint, right, you're not making any specific recommendations, you're not talking about particular products or anything like that. Because I think that a lot of times when I speak with advisors about utilizing social media, immediately they become fearful because it's been ingrained in us that, hey, things need to be approved, or, you need to stay within these, bumpers, so to speak. But I think that there's a whole another world over off to the side that you can be discussing where it's more so kind of documenting your journey, right?
Mhm.
And as simple as like, hey, I just left a meeting and I'm going to another meeting type thing. It's not, discussing those particular products or recommendations. So I guess how do you think of some of the content that you do put out there that totally goes around the idea of compliance because you're just kind of talking about what you're doing? How do you come up with that?
So I think a piece of it is being vulnerable and letting people know like what I'm actually doing during my day, whether that's going to get coffee or whether it's like sharing. So not only talking about the financial side of things, I think it's also talking about like who I am as a person, and like talking about like a morning routine or what I've learned from like the new podcast, and then like tying that back in. So for instance, one of my new posts that I'm going to do either today or tomorrow is about traveling. I've been doing a lot of traveling these last couple of months. And what I think about when I talk to clients is that no one's really planning vacations anymore. They just basically want to go on vacation and they charge it on their credit card. So maybe just talking through like a couple of tips and just giving them just enough kind of like to keep them hungry.
Yeah.
If they actually want to have a full conversation with me, then they can actually reach out. So it's keeping it super basic, definitely not doing any sort of recommendations, whether that be product or investing, anything like that. Absolutely not. But maybe just talking about getting kind of that foundation of savings in different topics, whether that be traveling, whether that be taxes, whether like, going to see your CPA, like that around certain times that I'm experiencing in my life, and sharing that with people and being authentic to myself.
And what I think that's cool, or what I think about in terms of what you just said, and what's cool about it is the topics that you can talk about, right, regardless of compliance or not, other topics that as advisors, right, we struggle with spending the time talking to someone about, like, spending 20, 30 minutes or, even 2 or 3 minutes. Hey, here's how you plan out a vacation, right? Here's how you budget. Those are the topics that like we don't really get compensated on. So when you look at as being an advisor through like a selfish lens, it's like, okay, how can we roll over this account? How can we sell this insurance product from a compensation standpoint to make it quote unquote worth our time? What you're doing is you're taking all the topics that we know we should be talking about. We don't get compensated on anyways. So it doesn't matter that we're not getting compensated on them when we push it out on social media. And what's happening from a psychological standpoint is people are getting better having come across your social media, right? They're learning those various topics. They're seeing your face, and they're basically building trust with you. So you're able to say a message once and build trust with, however many people follow your Instagram, hundreds or thousands of people are building trust with you. And over time, what's happening is they're sort of going through that sales funnel, right? And they're pre-selling themselves on actually working with you, so that when you sit down in front of them, it's a lot easier to build that relationship because they already know who you are, and you get to truly focus on them.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing what I realize is, especially as being an advisor is changing regardless, especially with social media and especially with kind of everything that's going on in the industry. What I've been realizing, a lot of my appointments were very like virtual. It was very like either over the phone or via computer or whatever. And what I was realizing is after the meeting, they didn't really get personal touches with me. They didn't get to know who I was as a person. So I wanted an outlet of, hey, I'm the same. I go through the same struggles as you, or I choose to do things the same, as you, whether it be, going shopping and choosing to go to, Nordstrom Rack versus Saks, and getting the same deal. And like, I go through the same, as much as I'm, influencing my clients and telling them what to do. Like, I want them to share not only that I go through the same things as them, with traveling and all that stuff, but also I wanted them to have that touch point with me that they could see what I've been doing. So then when I call them, then they're like, hey, I've been seeing you traveling, I'm connecting with them. And I felt like Instagram was a great platform for me because of where my targeted clientele and, audience is, and doing the stories, I think which are really fun. So
that's awesome. And you bring up a good point where when you say, they didn't have a lot of touches after the fact. And I think that any sort of corporate role that you're in, or sort of top-down structure, it's kind of ranking your clients, right? A, B, and C clients. And it's very mathematical and thought out, where it's like C clients only get to, talk to you over the phone, and B clients maybe get, a birthday card, and the A clients get everything, right? And what you're saying is, well, no, let's have everyone have the same experience, because acquiring a client is almost like buying a lottery ticket. You never know when that C is going to go to an A eventually. And what you're doing from, in-person or phone call to the next in-person or phone call appointment with them is you're just remaining relevant, right? There will never be a point in time, it sounds like, where someone will be like, hey, who's your financial advisor? And they have trouble thinking of your name.
Exactly.
Right? They're going to remember it like that because you're documenting your journey along the way. So I really like how you're maintaining your relevance by basically creating something once, but being able to share it in front of 1,000 eyeballs.
Yeah. And in the beginning, it was really hard because when I was sitting down and thinking about social media, I was like, where do I start? I think like in anything in life, starting a business, social media, buying a home, everyone's first question is like, where do I start?
Yeah.
So what I did is I just looked at other people that I was following and tried to change that into the financial side of things.
Uh-huh.
And in the beginning, it felt a little like really unauthentic to myself. Like I was like, God, I'm like posting these things and whatnot. And so what I did is I was like, you know what? I just need to kind of like let myself come through in the most like professional, fun manner side of things. So like what I did was in the beginning, I watched other people's stories. I looked at what people were posting, what time they were posting. I know people would post like even what I did. So my last Father's Day post, I was like, I posted about my dad, but then also I wrapped it back into business. I was like, my dad's been the one that's taught me everything I've known. And that's why I've started the business. So anything that I could talk about, I was like, where can I, be authentic to myself and share a little piece of like, why is this important? Why am I posting this? Like, again, I've been traveling a ton. So bringing that full circle. But what I did in the beginning was I just learned from as many people as I could, watched stories, was on Instagram. And then I felt really unauthentic because I was posting stuff maybe that I didn't feel. So I kind of let that go, started posting, and it's been a lot more fun to kind of post and talk and that sort of thing too.
And I think you bring up a couple cool lessons or ideas here, and I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. So a couple things I heard or that I can extrapolate from when I started doing it, because I think that we are our own worst critics, right? So when we hear ourselves or we see ourselves, we're like, oh, like I need to fix this, or I need to sound like this, or I say too much, or whatever it really is. And I think it's almost better when people say, well, what's the point of doing it? Like, I don't have any followers yet, or no one likes my stuff yet. And I think that's actually better because it gives you time to find your voice and be able to feel comfortable in front of a camera when, quote unquote, no one's watching, when in reality, everyone's watching. They may just not be interacting at that time. Mm-hmm. And what's cool about it is you can even direct people to the beginning of your, call it online journey to where you are now, and they're going to be able to see how much you've grown over that time period. So just sort of wrap that up. It's the idea of, hey, it's okay if no one's listening because it gives you time to find your voice and your mannerisms and the way that you act in front of a camera. The other thing that I'm hearing is, or that I've experienced, I should say, and I'm curious to know if you've experienced the same thing, is a lot of times people won't start doing this stuff because they're afraid of what their friends are going to think. Right, because their friends see you in one lens, and then they're seeing you through another lens, via your social media. And what I found personally is there's like sort of three circles of people, right? There's the initial circle, those like your best friends, right? Mm-hmm. And your best friend's job is kind of to bust your chops when you do something kind of out there and crazy and whatnot. So my experience, anyways, is like, all my boys bust my chops, right? When they see me posting stuff. And I've just like accepted that, you know what I mean? But then you have that additional layer of friends where they're colleagues or really good clients of yours. And they're like, oh, it's cool what you're doing. And they're kind of, going along for the ride, so to speak. And then that third layer of people is where I've found in my business are actually reaching out to me because I'm positioning myself, because I'm doing it every day, right? Positioning myself as the expert.
Yeah.
And they're far enough removed to not know where I was before. They've just seen my new content that I'm putting out. And all I have to do with that person is add value and execute on the problems that they have, right? And solve those. And it's a win-win scenario. So as long as you're willing to have the courage to fight through that inner circle of friends whose job is to bust your chops, the outer circles are where you're really able to have a really good impact and make a lot of money. And then ultimately what I've started seeing is that inner group of people being like, hey, can you teach me how to do this? Or can you teach me how to do that? So they come full circle. Yeah. But what's just curious, what's your experience been with that sort of scenario?
So you definitely can't lie to where your friends are at, especially I like to document some of my day or whatnot. So I definitely know my friends are like, why aren't you calling me back? I know that you have time on social media. I'm like, oh, come on. Yeah. Definitely. I think that when you change anything in life, I think when you try to better yourself as a person, like you are going to get, and I hate to call them haters, but like, because obviously it's not people who hate you, but like you're kind of going to get pushback because you're doing something that either people see that you're doing that they actually really want to do and maybe that they're not they have maybe a little bit of fear around. Like sometimes like when it comes to like working out or maybe not drinking, you kind of get those people who are like, well, why not? Like, like
Right.
the mental side. But definitely in the beginning, like the great thing about my friends is they're the ones that are commenting on my stuff. They love it. Like I had a couple of friends who were definitely like, what are you doing with your social media? And like, why do you keep posting? And then what I laugh at is then they come around and they're like, okay, and then I either see them doing it, like I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I see you doing that, or they're asking me like, I love what you're doing. Like, how are you doing this? Like, where are you thinking of content? How are you, positioning yourself and, on the social media side of things? So it's definitely very interesting that you kind of get those flows, but I've definitely gotten in trouble because people are like, I see that all the time. You're on social media and, you don't have time for me and you're not making time. And I'm like, okay, hold on.
Just tell them you have two phones. One's for social media, one's for everyone else, and
Exactly.
you only carry one.
Well, I think what people don't understand, and I'm sure you can attest to this too, is that making yourself a brand or putting yourself out there in a different light takes a lot of work.
Hmm.
It's not just, you have to actually strategically think about the things that you're posting rather than people who are just posting just to post because they want their family and friends to see what they're doing.
And,
What
and oh, go ahead and finish your thought.
I was just going to say what we're doing is more strategic in the way that we want to show people what we're doing, but also we want to relay a message at the same time. And that's a hard thing to think of.
So walk us through some of the stuff that you do post on, let's say, your story on Instagram, because I've seen one of the things that I was really impressed with as an idea overall is the opportunity to cross promote. I know you do some work with some business owners,
Mm-hmm.
and I've noticed the subtle little mini ad, if you will, or endorsement on your end, which I'm sure ends up being a two-way street. So that's really cool. And I've also seen you post like your coffee, right? So give us an example of, two or three things that you post and kind of why you post them.
So I like to post about my day. So whether that be getting coffee, I'm a big morning routine person. I've read multiple books where morning routines are important.
And
So
we're gonna talk about that in depth in a second. So
perfect. I like to post a little bit about myself, like what I'm doing, whether it's Ashley Horne as just a person or Ashley Horne as a business owner or Ashley Horne as a woman, whatever it may be. I like to kind of add that little side of things because I think people don't want to just see promotional stuff.
yeah,
So I definitely like to do that. So whether it's right in the morning, I like to tell a story. I think that's my main thing is I love telling a story on my Instagram. So whether it be from the time that I get up, what I'm doing during the day, and try to do like at night or whatnot. I try to like complete the story.
yeah.
Um, and then business wise, I love promoting people, and I know you do as well. Like I love, if I really like something, I love promoting them completely. So I usually ask them, obviously, if I can promote them. And then if I'm going through it, whether it's going through, cryotherapy or whether it's going through, the rapid eye movement that I've been doing with my therapist, and just kind of talking about those journeys and then promoting them as well as my clients. My clients have businesses, Pilates, dog studios. So I try to like, when I'm meeting with them right afterwards, kind of like doing a little bit of like, I'm meeting with a client, I'm really excited about it. Here's what she's doing or he's doing, they're amazing. Like if you want, go check them out because as you know, everyone comes to us for referrals. Who do you know for this? Who do you know for that?
Right.
And it's a nice platform. And then lastly, it's just education. I like to tie in, like I'm a big reader. I love reading, listening to podcasts, and I actually feel like a lot of people actually take a lot of that content and obviously the other stuff, but I consistently have people coming up to me. I didn't think social media was working for me for a long time. And then people would actually start coming up to me and being like, oh my God, I bought Sweet Sweat. I know I saw you keep promoting it and I use it and I love it and I smell amazing at the gym, or the 5-second rule. Hey, I just download that for Audible.
Yeah.
I know you kept talking about that book, or it's kind of cool when you actually see it come full circle. But those are typically the 3 areas that I try to focus on the most. So it's not just like me talking to a camera or just pictures, just still pictures. I try to like kind of keep it more like interesting and kind of throw things out there. So
Awesome. And it's funny. So we have a lot of similarities as it relates to how we grow. So I love to read. I love listening to podcasts. I love morning routines, right? I love all that type of stuff. And it's funny. I've experienced the same thing where at the beginning, I didn't feel like it was working either. And then I find out that like people were asking me, hey, where'd you buy that morning routine journal? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or, hey, where can I find that podcast? Or, hey, what episode would you listen to first? Or, hey, out of all the books you've read, which one would you read? And it's like, oh, wow, like this is actually having an impact on these people.
Yep.
You know, people end up coming out of the woodworks because, again, over time, you end up positioning yourself as the expert, the person who, hey, I'm going to go out and find all the great information. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
filter through that, and I'm going to post out there what I found to be relevant and something that the expert finds relevant, right?
Yeah.
People are more likely to go out and actually read or listen to that, because when you look at the fact that there's millions of podcasts out there, it's kind of overwhelming for someone to pick one and invest that time. But if you and I, right, invest that time on a particular piece of content and then share it, it just becomes more credible in the eyes of the people that follow us.
Exactly. Absolutely. And
So
I think,
go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say, I think with social media, you can't ever go into it thinking that you're going to get anything out of it. I think so many people go into certain things being like, oh, I'm expecting to make a ton of money, or I'm expecting to get a ton of followers or likes. I think that that's really, really the wrong way to go about anything, really, is that if you have a passion towards it, I mean, I give you so much credit. I think if you're passionate about it, you really want to help people, and you're just being authentic and you're putting it out there as much as you can and doing the things, because again, it's really difficult to think of content and to think of all that stuff. But I think if you do it because you really want people to learn, you really want people to know about you, it's going to eventually come back around. You just kind of have to wait a little bit.
So, and a specific story on that just happened today was, so I agree with you. You can't get into your brand expecting to make money immediately. The expectation needs to be, what can I do to add value? And I think that, to your point where you say it's difficult to think of content, I agree with that. However, I do think that there's a shift where you start realizing, oh crap, like every step I take, there's a lesson that I can share. And it's just taking those little micro lessons that we experience on a daily basis and sharing it, adding value, and basically get people to be better having come across our Instagram profiles or whatever social media platform that we're using. So that's what I spent, 2 or 3 months doing. And as you see in the Facebook group, right, just posting stuff every single day. And 2 days ago, I made a post on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram about group coaching. And I keep the groups to just 10 people. And what I found is that there's people in their first year or maybe kind of struggling from a financial standpoint, can't afford that one-on-one coaching opportunity and that sort of relationship. So I created, hey, let's have groups, no more than 10 people. And you can pay between either $100 a month, or you can prepay for the year for $1,000, get that 20% discount. And in 2 days, just from building up a following on those platforms, we already have the first group filled. So a post on each platform generated between, depending on how they pay, $10,000 and $12,000 roughly of revenue, right? And it's like, that's just because, though, all those people that reached out and quote unquote signed up are people who have gotten better through various other forms of content. And this is almost like their way of not only getting better themselves, but kind of, paying it back a little bit, right?
Yeah.
People see, like you mentioned, like, hey, I see that you're posting this stuff every single day. Like, people notice that. And when it's free, right, when there's an opportunity to buy something that's of value, they're going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the right mindset to go into it, because you can't go in expecting something. You have to do it because you're passionate and because you like what you're doing. And
exactly. So let's talk. So I'm a big fan on daily routines, morning routines, basically routines in general. I'm, super type A, and I kind of like, got to go by the book, so to speak, with some flexibility in between, of course. But there's, I practice, 5 critical tasks per day. I practice trying to be grateful and giving throughout the day. I call that like the bookends, where I wake up and I try and think of what I'm grateful for. I go to bed and I think of, okay, well, what can I give, or what did I give today, or something like that. And then try and maintain productivity during the day. And I do that through just identifying 5 things a day, 2 of which are professional based to move my business forward, 2 of which that are personal based to move myself forward, and then 1 thing to help or connect others. talk to me a little bit about, I know that you're big on your morning routine that's somewhat similar from what I've seen, but I'm curious to know, A, what it is, and B, since you've implemented it, how has that impacted your business, your life?
Yeah. So I kind of feel like I'm like a guinea pig once in a while. Like I feel like I read a lot of books about people's morning routines, and I like to add, like sprinkle in a little bit about what they're doing
Okay.
to try it and kind of see if it's like something. Otherwise, my morning routine is going to be like 6 hours long.
Yeah.
What I really like to do is a couple of things. So right away in the morning, so I just read Aubrey Marcus's book.
Yeah.
And I really liked about that book is he's like, right away in the morning is that you just need, hydration, movement, and light. That's the three things that he talks about. So right away in the morning, from the 5-second rule, once my alarm goes off, I'm up. Like no hitting the alarm, no snooze. I don't care if I got 4 hours of sleep or 10 hours of sleep. The second the alarm goes off, I'm awake. When I
heard her, and what's her name again? I forget.
Oh my God, of course
I'm putting you on the spot. Yeah.
Hold on. I have it right here. I can tell you. I actually just started following her on social media because I felt like she was.
So she was on an interview with Tom Bilyeu, the creator of Quest Nutrition. He has a podcast. And she was on an interview with him. And as soon as I heard that, I implemented it right away. And the whole 5-second rule is like a total game changer. Total game changer.
Amazing. Mel Robbins is her name.
Mel Robbins. Yep. That's it. That's it.
And so right away in the morning, I like to get out of bed. So I'll actually put my phone in the other room. So I'll hear my alarm go off. Of course, I'm like getting out of bed. It's not easy. I get out of bed. I go grab my phone. I don't check any social media or anything actually first thing in the morning. I try not to.
Awesome. You definitely don't do that every day.
It's hard, but I actually turn off notifications on my phone.
Okay.
I don't actually see any notifications yet. So no emails, no texting, no calls, nothing like that. It's usually on like do not disturb usually when I'm sleeping. So I get up, I go click off the alarm. I go to the kitchen and I grab a big thing of water. So I typically like drink out of this thing.
Yeah.
And I was drinking one full of these every morning. And now I'm actually going to up my water intake to drink like 3 liters. I just read actually yesterday, I should be drinking about 3 liters of water a day. So I'm going to try to do that for the next 2 weeks.
Awesome.
So like 2 of these in the morning that I drink. So I get up, have that. While I'm drinking my water, I pull up my 5-minute journal, which basically just asks like what you're grateful for, what are the things that you're going to do today, like the 3 things that would make you feel like you have an accomplished day, and then your I am statements. So you can say like, I am a certain goal, I am amazing, whatever it may be.
Right.
So I do that. And then right after that, as I'm still drinking my water, I do 3 pages. So I implemented this a little bit ago. I love it. I think that being a business owner, being a friend, a mom, being, a partner, and all that stuff, I have a lot of stuff going on in my head. And so the 3 pages will sit down and I'll just write whatever's on my mind.
So it's just like journaling, right?
Yeah. It's just a breakdown. What I find is I've come up with my best ideas, my best strategies. Anything that I, come up with comes from those 3 pages. Whether I'm in a fight with someone, it just allows me to like get all of that out of the way before I even start my day. So I'll do that. And usually I'll wake up, like this usually probably takes like all of this, like takes only a couple of minutes, like the 3 pages, all that stuff. It's really quick in the morning. I kind of have it down pat. And then after that, I've already prepared. So like in my fridge, I'll already have like a green juice. So I have like my green juice, which is sitting next to me.
Yeah.
Already prepared. So I do the 3 pages. I'll grab my green juice. While I'm drinking that, I'll put a podcast or a book on and I'll make my bed. Every morning, I'm like really a big stickler of like how my bed looks and how like my skin feels. So I'll make my bed. Then at that point, I'll throw my tennis shoes on and I'll either walk to coffee, which I haven't done in a little while, or I'll go downstairs. I have a treadmill and I'll bring my computer and I'll sit and I'll walk and I'll do emails, messages, Instagram, any sort of like social media platform that I'm on. And I'll do everything for about a half hour. So
while you're getting in a little bit of blood flow.
While I'm getting my steps in.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's about, and then I usually start my day usually at that point. So usually if I have like a meeting at like 9 a.m. or 11, like I'll go upstairs, I'll get dressed. Cause I'm not like obviously like running. So it's just walking really
Right.
lightly.
Now,
So
what time do you set your alarm in the morning?
6 a.m.
6
typically.
a.m. Cool.
Yes, 6 a.m. I'm not a morning person. I actually feel like my most creative side of things is actually at night. I feel like that's where I usually can like sit down. I'll reread like my vision plan, or I'll read like, again, like last night when I was working out, I did Pilates last night. I was thinking about like actually content for Instagram and, things that I want to do in the next couple of weeks, like business wise, like what my team's going to look like, whether I'm like hiring another person, like what my life in the next couple of years looks like.
Right. Kind of big picture stuff.
Yeah. Like, amazing. I'll try to work out in the morning if I can, because I usually like to work out like on an empty stomach. So I'll usually do like 7 a.m. Pilates class, or I'll get to the gym and like lift weights. It's a little bit harder to do that if someone's not keeping me accountable.
Right.
I typically try to like work out on an empty stomach and then get into my day. So whether it's walking, Pilates, weight training, whatever it is.
I think you breezed over a couple points, not to cut you off, but to cut you off.
Yeah.
You breezed over a couple points that I think are critical, and I literally do the same thing, is multitasking, right? Whether it's the treadmill and answering emails, or the easiest one, which is when you're walking, when you're just moving around the house, when you're driving, literally anytime there's dead space, it is so easy to just toss headphones in your ears and listen to something that's going to make you better, to the point where like I barely listen to music anymore, because it's like if I can use that time and get better, like I listen to the MF CEO Project podcast, which I love, and there's like 240 something episodes. I literally started at 1, and I listened to them at 1.5 times speed, and I was listening to like 5 to 8 of them a day, and I finished the whole thing in like a few weeks. And that's like a PhD on business, just like really any other good podcast is. And there's just no excuse for someone who's like, oh, I don't have time for that. It's like you're doing it while you're making your bed, which brings me to my next point, right? Making your bed in the morning is so critical for me anyways, because it's your first win of the day, right? You're like, I accomplished something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how good or how shitty your day was. You show up and you have a nice made bed that's welcoming you. You know what I mean? So I'm a stickler on that too, where it needs to be pristine. It needs to, like, literally the first thing I do when I wake up is as I make my bed, because it just gets you in that winning mindset, and that you're able to sort of check that box. So I like that, you're practicing that stuff too.
Yeah. And like, I've been trying to throw in like meditation in the morning. Like I love a morning routine. I think the main things that I stick to is drinking water right when I wake up. I think it's, making my bed. Like there's certain things that I know for sure I want to do. I usually drink I try to drink green juice because like I'm not a big like green eater. So I'm like anything I can do to like streamline, and usually it's already sitting in the fridge. It's already ready.
Yeah.
Like, I'm busy. I'm like, I have to go. And so I've tried to sprinkle in like meditation and, other things like that too, but it's a work in progress always, which is kind of fun too.
So share with me a little bit about like where you were at, or like how you felt like mentally before all this, and since you've actually implemented this stuff into your life.
Yeah. So before, I think I was a little bit chaotic. I think I would wake up in the morning, I would work from bed a little bit, like I would check social media, and I kind of felt like it was like the second that I hit my, my feet hit the floor, it was like I was gone till I got home at night.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized, especially from listening to a bunch of podcasts, and really like, I love what you said is like, I barely listen to music. The only time I listen to music is when I'm in the gym. That's literally like the hour that I get to the gym and I'm lifting. That's the only time that I'm getting. Otherwise that's
your accountability and your motivation.
Yeah. But just from listening to other podcasts and from other people who are successful, I think the most successful people take what other successful people have done before them and implement them. And when I started to want to do more social media and just get more enriched in what I'm doing and my business and building myself as a brand, I listened to every podcast I could. And what I kept hearing is morning routine, morning routine, morning routine.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you do something, but it's nice to actually like put like, what are you going to do every single morning? Is kind of like where that kind of that idea came from, is listening to all of these really successful people, because someone made a comment on a podcast I just listened to, like, Bill Gates isn't checking email the first second that in the morning.
Right.
Like, he's not doing that. He has other people that are handling it. My staff know when I'm checking emails and things like that, that in the morning, it's really to set my intention for the day. And the one thing I forgot to mention is what you do is every day, what I've been doing is trying to say like 2 things, no matter what, that I'll complete today, no matter what, 2 things. And then what time am I done with work? What time am I done with work? Not saying that it has to be like, because my brain never shuts off. I'm sure you're.
Of course.
But like, what time mentally am I done for the day? So those are the 3 things that I'm trying to implement every morning, because that will allow me to kind of be able to shut my brain off and then actually switch or transition into like the fun thinking side of things, even though it's still work.
Totally hear you. Totally hear you.
So now it feels a little bit more structured, and a little bit like when my day happens and when I'm talking with clients and when I'm doing social media, I feel a lot more relaxed because I've given myself time in the morning to get my head on straight, to either meditate, drink water, which is super important. I used to never drink water in the morning. I was like consistently dehydrated.
Yeah.
And kind of get into a good routine has allowed me to actually be a better advisor, as well as be able to be I love thinking. So actually being able to unlock like ideas and, strategies and.
Yeah. When you're constantly filling your brain with podcasts and books and, water even, right? It almost like unlocks this additional layer of brain capacity for you to be able to think of those creative ideas that ultimately will impact the people around you and obviously in turn you as well. So it's been cool to see your journey, change and grow from, not really utilizing it to obviously there was like a massive shift, which is why I reached out to you and said, hey, we got to have you on here.
Yeah.
So it's been cool to see.
Yeah. Which I so appreciate. I mean, that's, it's the people who are actually noticing the little changes that I'm doing and whatnot, which is super exciting. It means I'm moving in the right direction. So,
awesome.
Which is good.
So before we wrap up, where can people find you on Instagram?
Yes. So they can find me on Ashley A. Horne, Horne is my Instagram handle. And that's basically everywhere you can find me. So
Awesome. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today. And for those of you who are listening, go from listening to this to actually implementing some of this stuff, and just know that, as we mentioned, right, it's okay if people aren't listening at the beginning, because it's going to give you an opportunity to find your voice and, come to, so to speak. And then your inner circle of friends may bust your chops a little bit, but the outer layers are where you're really going to have an impact. And eventually your friends will come full circle and say, hey, can you teach me how to do that? So don't be afraid to do that, but don't just listen to this and then get back to your day. Either start working on this right away or set aside some time, the next day or the day after, where you can actually start game planning this stuff. And of course, if you have questions, let us know. We're happy to help. So thanks for joining today. And Ashley, thanks for joining.
Thank you.